Hey, everybody, really excited about our upcoming Gross Anatomy podcast where Lauren Taylor and I talk about all sorts of doctors, real doctors, fake doctors, bad doctors, fictional doctors, and then the OG doctor. You look it up. Check it out. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Gross Anatomy, where we explore the sights, smells, and sounds of medicine, how it relates to movies, TV, books, pop culture, podcasts, and the world around us. And I am Dr. Jason Cohen.
And I am Lauren Taylor, and we are excited to be with you today.
What are we doing today? What are we talking about today? Give us a little teaser.
We are talking about bad surgeons, unlicensed surgeons, and fictional surgeons.
Ooh, so everything I am. I'm bad, unlicensed, and I'm fictional.
No, you are nothing like the doctors, surgeons we are going to talk about, but I'm pretty sure one of them could make for a good season of Dr. Death, which is a podcast that also the first 2 seasons were put into a Peacock show, but they're on their 4th season. So I just looked it up.
And we watched the first season, didn't we?
Yeah, we listened to the first season. I believe that was a cancer doctor that was telling people they had cancer and didn't really, was just paying for the treatments.
I thought it was the spine. No, it was the spine.
It was the spine one, yes. That was like the big one.
I must confess, I didn't listen to the podcast. I watched the series with Josh Jackson.
So we're going to talk about surgeons that might make for a good Dr. Death. Not sure.
Very cool. Can't wait. Let's get going. Let's break it down. Let's do this.
Well, first I wanted to talk about some happy things. You officiated your first wedding.
That is very true. Officiated my first wedding of my daughter, one of her best childhood friends, Jenna and Miles. Jenna and Miles got married, and interestingly, they were a COVID couple. You know, COVID was a terrible thing, but these two met during COVID, so something good came of COVID, I guess. You know, some people made sourdough and some people started a garden, but these two met their match over. Yeah, it's cute. So after they got engaged one time, they're like, Jason, could we ask you something? Would you officiate our wedding? And like an idiot, without even thinking twice, I was like, yeah, sure. I was just honored and dumbfounded, So I said, okay. Over the course of the year of me thinking about it and getting ready and procrastinating and writing it, I've been saying to myself, why the hell did I say yes? I should not have said yes.
You have to have a whole speech, like a whole monologue.
I had to give a whole monologue, a whole speech. But not only that, it was a Jewish wedding. So I had to make sure it was Jewish appropriately and do all the Jewish stuff. And then the night before, we had like a Shabbat, a Friday night Sabbath thing. And we had to do something with the marriage license. So I made a little thing out of that. So it was a lot of work. But the truth is I definitely stressed and was very nervous leading up to it, more because it seemed like it was a lot of work, a lot of things I had to do. But I'm glad I did it, and it was really an honor. And once I got all the work done for it, which I must confess I didn't do up until a few days before, in terms of really finishing everything, I was pretty stressed. I was definitely stressing out. Like I'm so behind on other stuff. Like I'm one of those people, like if I have one big thing to do, kind of everything else gets forgotten. So now I have a lot of crap to catch up on because I really was just putting all my focus on that.
See, I don't see you being nervous as like a public speaker, but was it just because you had to do the ritual part of it? Like that kind of? You had to memorize?
No, I was more nervous because I was totally nervous till I had the script totally prepared. Once I had the script prepared and knew exactly what I was going to say, it wasn't that bad. So I was nervous to get it all done and get it right. And then I was nervous about making sure, I was giving these guys the wedding they wanted, so I was nervous about that they'd be happy that, so that's really what I was nervous about more than anything, getting the script right. Like I had a lot of different things I thought I was going to say, a lot of different ideas, so until I kind of narrowed it down and came up with what it was, it definitely stressed me out.
That's nice that you care so much, though. That's why they chose you. They wanted like your personality in it. Did you get any laughs?
I think so. I think I got some laughs. The funny thing is they wanted an unplugged wedding. They specifically didn't want anybody with their cell phones out during the wedding. So one of the things before the ceremony got going was I told everybody, put your cell phones away. And then we did this cute little bit after everybody put their cell phones away. Before we got started, I said, you know what, everybody, this is your chance to take a picture, to do selfies and take pictures of everybody. So take your phones back out. Here's your chance. Let's take pictures of everyone now, and then get your phones away. But so there's no footage though, and no recording of me other than the wedding footage and the wedding camera. So I don't, until I see it, I'm not going to know exactly how I did.
I think I was trying to think, why would people have their phones out? But I guess people are always wanting to do their own videos, photos. So I guess you have to say that now.
Yeah, everybody's got their phones out. We went to, the funny thing is we went to a wedding the following day, another wedding. And at that wedding, everybody's phones were out. Everybody was recording. Everybody was recording the bride and the groom. And, everybody had their hand held up, with their phone. It was amazing.
And then if you have like a professional videographer, that probably takes away from their shots. So I could see why you were like, put it away.
Right. They had a videographer, they had a photographer. So, and that was the other thing I was making sure to do, when it came time for stuff, I made sure to move out of the way. So the bride and groom were featured and not me, even though I wanted to be there.
Well, I'm glad it went well. I'm sure it was beautiful.
Yeah, I'm glad it's over. I'm glad that stress is behind me. Although, I'm glad I did it. And I wouldn't automatically say no if asked again.
Okay. You probably shouldn't put that out there, but all right. I feel like you're going to...
I'd have to think about, I'd think about it a little deeper the next time, but I wouldn't just knee jerk say no.
Okay. I have a feeling you're going to get hit up again sometime soon.
You never know. It'd be fun to do it with another person, I was thinking, so that you're not just up there alone, and you could banter back and forth a little bit.
I've never seen that at a wedding before, but that would be amazing.
My daughter's wedding a year ago, they had two of their best friends do it. So, and they did an amazing job too. So I was nervous a little bit about that. Like I felt like I had to outshine them a little bit. There was a lot of pressure because one of them was there at the wedding. So I was like, I gotta do better than this kid.
Yeah, that's not really fair. It's like 2 against 1.
Yeah.
But I know from like my wedding, I had my Uncle Mike, who's not really my uncle, but I call him my uncle, do mine. And then immediately after, he was asked to do another wedding. And like the same thing for Travis's cousin. She's been asked to do so many weddings. Like so.
That's cool.
One, and then, yeah, she keeps doing it.
We'll see if this turns into a new gig for me.
I don't think you have time because other good news, the Golden Globes is presenting a new award in 2026, Best Podcast of the Year. All we have to do is get in the top 25 of millions of podcasts, and then we can be considered.
That's so weird. The Golden Globes were calling me last week. I was wondering why. They've been calling. I thought it was spam. I've been ignoring them. That must be why. They want us to be the #1 podcast, and maybe they even want us to be presenters.
Oh, that would be amazing. I mean, but I can't believe they're having a podcast award, but I guess it's because this medium is just so popular. So it'll be interesting to see.
And it's so easy. Yeah.
I imagine it'll be a comedian, like a famous comedian that I don't know who the top 25 are.
Smartless is definitely up there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Or maybe not.
No, I bet you're right, but I feel like that's not really fair because these celebrities just easily get their celebrity friends on and they're like #1. Hopefully it's something more interesting than that. I do like Smartless, but like hopefully it's something a little bit more than just
they definitely have an unfair edge. They've been asking me to be a guest too. I just keep telling them I'm too busy.
That would be so cool. I think they did have, did you watch that documentary they had on Smartless?
No. No, but I do want to see that.
It was actually pretty good. It was just like some backstage footage of when they did their live tour. But I think they had like a doctor or a scientist on one of their tour stops, and like the audience was just, I think it was in Boston, they were just like terrible because it wasn't a celebrity. It was like a scientist or a doctor, and they just were not happy. Like they
I bet.
And a little bit disrespectful. So I don't know.
Too bad.
Probably nervous to have another doctor on.
Yeah.
I imagine.
Interestingly, the other day in the OR, we were listening to Depeche Mode. You know Depeche Mode, right? Mm-hmm. We were listening to Depeche Mode, and the anesthesiologist that I was working with also knows Depeche Mode and likes Depeche Mode, and somehow I said, and is a big fan of Depeche Mode, and I don't know that much about the band members of Depeche Mode, but I'm a big fan. So I said, there's a great episode of Smartless where the lead singer of Depeche Mode is on, and she was like, "Wow, I gotta listen to that." And this was just the other day in the OR. What's really upsetting was none of our resident and the scrub tech and the scrub nurse. Actually, our scrub tech knew, but many of the actually when we were playing it, the OR nurse read it. I'm like, "What playlist is this?" And she goes, "Depeche Modi." And I'm like, don't tell me, we were so upset that we realized how old we were that she had no idea who Depeche Mode were.
Yeah, I feel like I mean, I guess your daughters know because of you, but I
Yeah,
don't.
my daughters know for sure.
Yeah, I don't think the younger generation knows.
Not so much. Well, some, but then we played in the OR. We played some of the popular songs, and they were like, "Oh yeah, I know this band." So they redeemed themselves a little bit, and I was able to do the surgery, luckily, because otherwise we would have had to stop the surgery.
All right. Well, all right. So top 25 Golden Globes. That's a goal for us. Surgeries. I mean, we could make one of these a show ourselves if we had the funding. So this bad surgeon, weirdly enough, I looked up this story and I found out it's not as unique as I'd like it to be. But this Florida surgeon mistakenly removed a man's liver instead of his spleen. He was supposed to have what is it called? A
Splenectomy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because he felt left-sided flank pain, and he was admitted to hospital in Florida, even though he's from Alabama, and they were reluctant to have the surgery there, but they persuaded him that if he left, he could have serious complications. So he had the surgery, and the surgeon did a hand-assisted laparoscopic splenectomy. Which, can you explain that to our audience?
Wait, he was supposed to do a liver resection and did a splenectomy instead?
No, that he was supposed to just take out a spleen, and he took out his liver.
Wow, interesting. And he didn't take out the spleen?
No.
And this was recent or a while ago?
So this was last year, but it took
That's
7
recent.
months it took 7 months for them to just come out with a report.
Well, the interesting thing about that is there's so many things, but these days, and you said it's a hand-assisted laparoscopic?
That's what it says in this report.
Yeah. So the joke amongst laparoscopic or robotic surgeons is that the surgeons who do hand-assisted basically mean that they're not good laparoscopic surgeons. So that's one thing. I mean, so probably it was a surgeon who's not very good with laparoscopic surgery if they're doing hand-assisted. At one point, when we first started doing certain laparoscopic surgeries and pushing the envelope, then at that point, a little bit we did hand assisted before the technology got better. But these days, the patient either needs laparoscopic or robotic with the scopes and the cameras, or they need open, old fashioned. And I think that hybrid of hand assisted is probably what did the patient in, because the whole thing about laparoscopic or robotic is we're doing the surgery on TV basically with these instruments, and we have a good view and big screen and we see everything. But once you introduce your hand in there, that takes up a lot of visualization. You really can't see so well. Yes, you could feel, but it probably means that you're not necessarily either A, not so good laparoscopic, or B, should probably just open in the first place, because my lights just went off, open in the first place, because it's either safer to do an open operation, or maybe the spleen is just too big and you can't, because sometimes we remove spleens because they get really big for different reasons. Many different reasons the spleen gets big. And basically the spleen is it's just filled with blood. It filters our blood, and it's filled with blood, and it can get huge. I mean, it could get the size of a watermelon, a big watermelon, the spleen. Normally it's about the size of think of Dove soap. Maybe it's the size of a big bar of Dove soap, maybe, or like if you're eating watermelon, if you're eating like some honeydew, like one slice of honeydew or melon that you're eating is the size of a spleen. It's like a little bigger than a fist.
Than I thought. Okay.
Yeah, no, the spleen can get big, but it could sometimes be the size of a watermelon. Unfortunately, my feeling is probably the surgeon was doing the wrong thing. And if they're doing a hand assist, it means they're not really seeing necessarily. And I guess potentially you could remove, sometimes the spleen could be stuck to the liver, and maybe you could remove part of the liver if it's stuck. But that, I don't know, it's definitely a little concerning. And in my mind, it probably just means that unfortunately the that surgeon probably should not have been doing that operation.
Apparently, he had past complaints, like in that Dr. Death episode. He still, was allowed to practice. That's like the lawsuit. The widow is also suing the hospital because of that.
Yeah, yeah. My guess is, yeah, that sounds interesting.
But I didn't know the spleen could be that big because he told, according to the lawsuit, he told the widow that his spleen was so diseased that it was 4 times the normal size. So that could actually be something that happened.
Yeah, that could definitely be a thing. And 4 times the size of normal size isn't even that big. I mean, it could get even bigger.
Oh, I didn't know that. Well, he told her that. And then according to her, he told her not to have an autopsy. But she did. And the autopsy came back and it said he's missing his liver and his spleen was still.
Wow.
And also, according to the lawsuit, they're suing some of the staff because I guess maybe he encouraged a nurse to write spleen instead of liver.
Wow. And the patient died on the OR table. I mean,
Yeah.
the crazy thing is how the heck, the spleen is on one side, the liver's on the other side. Now, interestingly, there are some weird syndromes called situs inversus where the spleen and the liver are that the organs are reversed. So, I mean, is it possible that that patient had, the spleen is supposed to be, under our ribs on the left, tucked up under our ribs on the left, the liver's up on the right. So is it possible this patient had situs inversus where the organs are totally reversed? And maybe you would think that they would have some pre-op imaging to suggest it. But I, that kind of thing could happen. So that could be something. But wow, that's a major cover up. But it's very hard in the scheme of removing things. It's very hard to remove a liver. A spleen is hard, but not that hard. And so wow, that's
this poor man, and it said
that's a sad, crazy story.
And he died of catastrophic blood loss.
Right, exactly. And that's why the liver is as vascular as the spleen is. The liver just has so much more, and there are major blood vessels attached. I mean, the vena cava, the major vein that feeds us, is attached to the liver, in addition to the hepatic artery and veins. So, liver injuries can be easily deadly, whereas a splenic injury, yes, could be deadly, but, you could easier to survive. So basically this patient had a fatal liver injury is what the surgeon did. That is something I'm surprised I haven't heard of that. Thank you for telling me about that.
Yeah, I mean, apparently they don't allow him to practice in Alabama, but it's unclear to me if they still allow him to practice in Florida. So it took 7 months for a sheriff office investigation, a criminal investigation to come out. But yeah, it's saying that the next phase will focus on getting expert opinions from surgeons. So I guess they would ask like surgeons like you, like they're still investigating.
Wow.
So I'm not sure if he's practicing anywhere.
Yeah. Interesting. I don't know. Who knows?
But have you ever been asked for an expert opinion as a surgeon? Like
in medical legal cases?
Yeah.
That's an interesting question, Lauren Taylor.
Or maybe you can't say. So.
No, I totally can. So I have a lot of colleagues and friends, surgeons, non-surgeons, medical doctors, some who even make their living as medical experts testifying or giving their advice, without testifying, their written advice and things like that. I've been asked, and in my mind, one of the things that's wrong with healthcare or the legal system is so entwined with healthcare. And I think to some degree, sorry lawyers out there, some of you I love, but I think to some degree it's ruined healthcare. The fact that these people now rightfully so, this particular patient the family needs to be taken care of, but there are different ways to do it. But I think the system is abused, and I think part of the abuse is it's just abused. And I think by doctors coming forth and testifying on either side, it continues to fuel and feed this broken, corrupt, terrible system. So in my mind, even my colleague friends who are there to support the doctor or whatever, I think to some degree they're part of the problem. And that's just my holier than thou pathetic thinking on it all. But so I'm very against the medical legal system of that a little bit. And I think because I think it's broken, and I think doctors, even when you're testifying for the good guy, I think if every single doctor in the world said, I'm not going to do this, I think they'd have to figure out something else. And I think maybe we'd be able to get rid of the lawyers. And I think the doctors themselves, should form a body that takes care of, and the hospitals too, that should take care of these things that go wrong and fix them themselves. And I think it would save a lot of money, and I think it would be a better system. Get some civilians and get some doctors to have their own kind of board that does this. But I think the fact that we allow lawyers, I think there are too many regular people who abuse it. I have a boo-boo, I'm going to sue, and I don't know. So that's my thoughts on the whole thing, why I'm against that.
Yeah, I mean, no, lawsuits, yeah, I feel like in a lot of industries are out of control, and what you have to pay for, what do you have to pay for, malpractice insurance, and all of that stuff is out of control.
Our practice pays hundreds of thousands of dollars just for our group of surgeons. So the amount of money that we have to spend on malpractice, the fact that it can't go to a charity or to the indigent population that need healthcare, the fact that I have to, over the years, my practice has thrown away probably millions of dollars to cover our malpractice. If we get rid of that whole industry, we could take care of the poor. We could get rid of the healthcare crisis. If you say to surgeons and doctors, you know what? This is one of my pet peeves, the fact that I have to pay malpractice. If you say to the doctors, you know what? Let me reduce your malpractice that you're paying to these malpractice insurance companies that are making money off of
doing nothing
for no reason. Yeah. Why don't you say to me, you know what, Dr. Cohen, instead of paying $50,000 a year, pay us $1,000 to this board, or pay us $1,000, whatever it is, and we'll keep some of it for our own group to kind of to help if God forbid something happens, to pay the family, whatever. But why don't we take the rest and cure the healthcare crisis, and rather than give it to the lawyers and give it to the malpractice insurance companies. I mean it's really a terrible illness.
And you're not alone. I think that's this widow's point too, is that the hospital didn't had this surgeon still practicing, and I guess there were complaints filed before. So if you did have some kind of board that could immediately stop him, investigate, do their own conclusions. Right. Something else. She said she's suing too, so that no one else is killed by this surgeon.
I know, but it's broken. Right. The whole system is broken.
You're right. Absolutely.
And I think that's a big reason why the whole healthcare system in general is a mess. I think it has a lot to do with the medical legal aspect of stuff.
Right. And this case is it's in the news for a reason. It's an outlier.
Yeah, it's a pretty crazy case.
It is. But then when I was looking this up, I did see another surgeon took out somebody's kidney when they were supposed to take out their spleen. So they're suffering some. But
I actually said it today. One of my partners was complaining about small little things that she noticed, whether it's a radiology report that gets dictated wrong, or little things like that. Someone has an accent, so it picks up funny in the translation or the dictation, whatever. And she's like, oh, there's so many mistakes. And I said to her, there are always going to be mistakes, and there's no way to get rid of the mistakes. That's my joke. And this was today. My joke is, there is one way. There's definitely one way we could get rid of mistakes. Do you know how we could get rid of mistakes, Lauren Taylor?
Get rid of human beings?
Get rid of the patients. If we have no patients and no humans, we could get rid of mistakes. But the important thing is it's how we deal with the mistakes. It's how we treat the mistakes. It's how we don't cover up the mistakes. It's how we fix the mistakes. It's how we take care of people. And until AI and robots are taking care of us, which I'm sure there's still going to be mistakes, and there'll be even more things. But until that's really happening, there's always going to be errors. There's always going to be mistakes. And the bottom line is, it's how we handle them and deal with them and make them right. And people are going to die, unfortunately. I mean, we all have an expiration. And that's the other thing that people don't realize is we get sick, and unfortunately we die, and it's going to happen. And I don't know.
Yeah. Well, so this case in particular, so this patient died on the operating table, and does it immediately go to an M&M? It didn't say anything about that. Or
what's an M&M, Lauren Taylor? How do you know an M&M?
I know because we've talked about it before, but it's morbid and mortality. Is that right?
Morbidity and mortality.
Morbidity and mortality.
Yeah. And we have Dr. Gordon on, one of our favorite people, who used to run and he's written books and given speeches about lectures on the Morbidity and Mortality Conference, which is very big. What's that?
Dr. Leo Gordon, if anyone wants to look him up.
Dr. Leo Gordon is an amazing man, amazing speaker, amazing writer, and a good friend. And and very wise. And yes, so that kind of thing goes to all surgery groups at hospitals, universities have a morbidity and mortality conference, whether it's weekly or monthly, where they go over all the complications and deaths just to kind of, see, is it something we could have helped? Is it something we couldn't have helped? Where did the mistake go wrong? And the goal of it is to try to learn and teach and prevent it from happening again.
So you go to those like monthly?
I sometimes go. I don't go as often as I should.
It's not required.
It's not required. It's required if you're part of the faculty, if you're paid by the hospital, by the university, if you're on staff,
Okay.
or if you're a resident or in education, then it's required. I have privileges at the hospital, so it's not required for me. So my partners go more often. If ever, God forbid, it's very rare. If ever I have a particular case that something went wrong that's being discussed, I make it a point to go. Luckily, that's very, very rare, but it's luck, because mistakes happen. It's very rare that I go. It's usually at a time when that's not necessarily convenient for me. I'm usually, to be quite honest, I'm usually working out at that time. So got to pick my priorities.
No, I completely understand. Just say, for instance, if this doctor that took out a kidney instead of a spleen, the patient bled out, wouldn't he have to be part of this? Or
100%. Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Unless it's small, dinky, like sometimes in small community hospitals, they may not do M&M, but any kind of teaching or university hospital, they always do M&M. We've talked about it too. We have this whole timeout thing now before surgery where we kind of, before we're given the knife, we kind of go over what we're going to be doing. And we say, we're going to be removing the thyroid, or the left side of the thyroid. And if we know we're doing the left side, I actually have to, before we even go into the OR, I have to mark the left side of what it is I'm operating on with a yes. So there's at major institutions, there's a lot of steps built in to try to prevent complications, but at the end of the day, they still sometimes happen.
Okay, good to know. All right, so now we're moving on to the unlicensed doctor. Does that just mean that just means you're not a doctor. You were never a doctor, you're unlicensed.
Or you may have let your license lapse, or you may have lost your license, or you may be pretending.
Okay, I couldn't
Or
tell.
maybe you went to med school but never finished or something like that.
I couldn't figure out which was which, but this 31-year-old New York City woman, she went to an unlicensed surgeon. I'm not sure if he claimed to be licensed, but she went to his house, so she didn't even go to a medical facility to remove her butt implants. So I don't know if she found them online. I'm assuming a lot of doctors are on social media, like kind of like in the pit. Do you remember that one part where there was like a girl that they injected her with I don't know if it was some kind of substance that wasn't a butt implant.
Yeah.
She was on the table and her butt was so lumpy and they were
Right.
gonna have to check her, and
Right.
she went to someone she found on social media.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard that one on the radio actually about that story. That was fairly recent, right?
Yeah.
I
This
just
one was
heard about it.
recent. But
Yeah.
she died because he gave her lidocaine, right? And it was lidocaine toxicity, I think.
Oh, he gave her too much lidocaine, perhaps? Yeah, I mean, if you get too much lidocaine, you could get definite toxicity and, your heart could start doing funky things and you could lose consciousness and all that stuff. Interestingly, we actually use lidocaine for heart arrhythmias sometimes too. So it sometimes treats arrhythmia, abnormal heart rhythms, but it also could cause abnormal heart rhythms. So it's an interesting medicine, but it's used as a numbing medicine. But there's a toxic dose, and we all learn that. But sometimes for whatever reason it goes into an artery or a vein, or it just builds up funny, and even if you're giving what you think is an okay dose, sometimes it just accumulates funny, and so rarely that could happen.
Which is why you'd want to be in a hospital or a different setting when you're administering, or medical.
Yeah, you definitely want to be in a real facility when you're doing stuff in case, God forbid, a mistake happens.
Well, she went into cardiac arrest, and by the time they got her, I guess she was brain dead, and then she died.
Wow.
Yeah.
So he's definitely going to lose his fake medical license. That's crazy.
Yeah.
But I gotta tell you, you can't. That doesn't surprise me, especially in today's TikTok, like you said,
I
in today's
know.
TikTok social media age. There are all these wellness gurus who, what criteria made them a wellness guru, and yet they're followed. Maybe they took some online course or read who knows what. And so today, if you have enough of a following or of enough of a presence, or you could probably get away with a lot.
Yeah, so I think it's good that stories like this are out there. Don't, I mean, just because it fits your price range, I mean,
I
same thing
know.
we talked about, like, don't take pills that aren't, like, you don't know where they came from. Don't go
Yeah.
to some weird house in Queens. That's not a medical center to get
Don't do
your
it.
butt implants removed. This poor
Exactly.
woman.
Yeah. That's pretty nutty. Pretty
But I
sad.
was wondering if your wife, the master injector, does she ever have stories that she tells you about with like botched people going? I imagine she does see people that went to unlicensed people and she's got to fix, but maybe not.
Yeah. She definitely gets, with what she does, Bernice, shout out, Master Injector. She gets a lot of people who have a dysmorphia, who just, even though they look okay, are convinced that one eyebrow is higher than the other, or there's like subtle things, so it's not uncommon that she has to like, fix subtle things, or sometimes, she does see. The nice thing about her, I think one of her big successful points about her is, even though she teaches people how to do really cool and can do all that cool stuff, she could do butt lifts with fillers and things like that. She does all that stuff. She's a less is more kind of person, which I think has really made her so successful. Is for the most part, you can't tell, you're having a ton of work done if you go to see her. And I think that's been part of it, is doing small things frequently, rather than big, major, crazy stuff.
Okay, I didn't know. I'm sure she's seen a lot.
She's definitely seen a lot, but I don't know any particular story offhand. But I remember growing up, there was that cat woman. Do you remember the cat woman? I
Is
think
she
it
in
was,
New York?
yeah, Joyce Wildenstein, I think her name was. She was like a socialite
Mm.
who had so much stuff that her face looked like a cat, so much work done. And I remember like that was kind of the gold standard of cosmetic procedures gone botched. But I think she liked that. I think she was trying to get that look, which is pretty interesting.
I mean, yeah, she was able to do it, I guess. Feel like, I swear I ran into her in New York City because
You
this,
saw her, you met
I
her,
think, no, like walking, like this.
physically ran into her.
I think so. Is that possible? Like,
Why
not
not?
ran into her, but like was so caught off guard by her face. Like, I remember this one, like being before, like this whole like
Maybe.
injections and stuff, being so confused by what I saw.
It's possible. It's possible. You know what's interesting? I remember talking to her a few years ago, and she's like, I think I ran into Lauren Taylor in New York City. Yeah.
Oh, it would have been so long ago, but I can like still visualize it because it was so startling. I feel like it had
Wow.
to be her.
What's really interesting, getting back to, doctors doing crazy stuff, is she actually convinced doctors or healthcare people to do that to her. And that's, is that malpractice, or is it not? I mean, that's a whole interesting debate. Is that person doing something they shouldn't be doing, or if someone wants it and wants to pay for it, why not?
Yeah, I never followed up with like the Joan Rivers case, but I know that that injector, I think she was very popular, but Joan Rivers died. I don't, and then I think she probably lost all of her business. But
Maybe.
I don't know if she lost her license. But that kind of, but when that was going on, that made me think Joan Rivers had so much done. So many times you're like going under the knife. Sometimes your odds, you know what I mean? Like at some
Yeah, I
point,
guess.
no?
It also depends like where you're doing it and who you're doing it, and are you doing it? Is there an anesthesiologist there? Is there a whole, it really depends on what you're doing and where you're doing it.
I mean, I guess you can go under the knife like the cat lady as many times as it's done right. I'm not sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
It just seems like when you age, just to like keep doing it, it seems
Yeah.
like it's riskier. But maybe I'm wrong.
Not to, belittle Dr. Pimple Popper, but, because the same producers of her show produced the show that I was on, Take My Tumor. But I've watched a couple of episodes or two with her, and I've seen the things that she does in her office, and I've cringed because in my mind, you could get away with doing things in an office without a team. But sometimes, even though you could get away with it, it might be faster or maybe more efficient. Sometimes it's just better to do it in an OR with a staff and an anesthesiologist, and less bleeding risk and less chance of coming back and all that stuff. So there's this whole, and I think even one of my partners used to like do a lot of procedures in the office, and over the years has realized, it's better to just do it in a surgery center. Yeah, it's a little more inconvenient for the patient maybe, but it's just safer. And you have more tools at your disposal if something goes wrong.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, yeah, maybe that was.
In fact, I have a patient right now who I've treated before who just called the office saying, I want to come in, I want to get some stuff removed. Dr. Cohen's removed things before, and let's just book the surgeries. And I said to my staff, and I even let the patient know, I said, A, I want to examine you first. I don't know what we're removing, and I'm not going to just start removing things. And then B, we're going to do it in an OR, depending on what it is. So it's controlled, and I know what I'm doing. And so happens even today.
Okay. Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, like you said, there's so many possibilities and mistakes happen, and I don't know. Also, like in the pit, they were saying that that one guy that sometimes people just die.
Sometimes people die. Yeah. And that's part of the whole medical legal problem today is people forget that sometimes it's our time.
Yeah. All right, let's end on something happier. We took a quiz to find out which doctor are we, because I wanted to. And I was thinking we would both have different doctors, but we both.
Where'd you find that quiz? Where'd you find that quiz?
I just found it online because I was thinking like the fictional, we always talk about what doctors we like, but we've never actually taken a quiz to see which doctor we're like.
Right.
So,
right.
Was there a doctor you were hoping that you'd get? And then we'll reveal who we both got.
Was there a list of all the potential doctors? Like I didn't look to see first.
Well, so I kept clicking things just to see if you could get different results, because we both, here's the big reveal, got Dr. Ross from ER.
Woo! Wait, but how did you get a man? Because it says, what sex are you?
I know. So I thought so I clicked female and it
still gave you Dr. Ross.
I was thinking that was kind of a weird question, because I was like, I don't want to just get the female doctors. I just want to see whatever doctor. And then it gave me Dr. Ross. And then I took it again, and I also selected female, and I got Dr. Dorian from Scrubs. So you can get different results. And it shows like Doogie Howser. It shows like a lot of doctors. We just have to make the same one.
But we're both George Clooney. We are both George Clooney. That's because we're so alike.
We're charming, apparently, and we like children, which I don't really. So.
Interesting. You don't like children?
I mean, I don't have any.
That doesn't mean you don't like them.
I like my niece.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like children.
But also, like George Clooney, I feel like his exit episode, Juliana Margulies, like they had twins, and then he was just like, see ya, and he took off.
I didn't watch it all the way through, so I didn't. You just ruined it for me. No, I don't know.
No, and then she decided she wanted to exit, so then they ended up together. But I was just,
I didn't know that. For me, I was like the questions. None of them were really my answer. Like your spirit animal or your what other thing. None of those were my spirit animal. So I just kind of went with what maybe would be. And what was some other thing? Oh, where would I want to live? None of those places I necessarily would want to live right now in my life. What?
I picked London.
I picked Los Angeles. So that's interesting. I don't know. Which spirit animal did you pick?
What were the options? I didn't pick the wolf. There was a wolf.
I picked the wolf. It was between the wolf, the unicorn, and the lion, and I went with the wolf.
It must be other questions we got the same. I don't know.
And we still got Dr. Ross. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. That's a good one, though. When he popped up, I was like, oh, I'm not going to.
Yeah, I was like happy. I'm like, yeah, I'm a hot doctor guy. There you go.
I probably would have preferred Dr. John Carter, Noah Wiley, because he was character in ER. But.
That's true. Or Dr. Roddy.
Or
Dr. Roddy from The Pit.
Denzel Washington from St. Elsewhere. Wouldn't that be amazing?
Yeah, that as you know, St. Elsewhere is one of the reasons why I became a doctor.
I know. I was hoping you got a character on there. I was like, that.
I know, that would have been cool. And my favorite doctor was not, although I loved the Denzel Washington character and I loved Denzel, loved and still love Denzel. My favorite character on that show was, did you watch that show?
No.
Oh.
We talked about it. I feel like I have. I've read about it.
Yeah. My favorite character, I forget his name. I think his last name is Morrison, or I don't remember, but he's gone on to be like a villain in a lot of stuff. Like he was like this emotional, sensitive, like the guy you kind of rooted for that kept having bad stuff happen to him. He was my favorite doctor on the show. And then oddly, over the years, his acting career took him to like parts where he's like a bad guy, which was kind of surprising. It was like totally a 180 in terms of what kind of parts he went on to do.
Maybe some people like playing the villain.
David Morse, that was his name. Do you know him?
I'm sure if I look him up, I've seen him in a million things.
Yeah.
But not off the top. So speaking of entertainment, suggestions for our audience on what to watch, listen to?
You know, I gotta say, Bernice and I, Master Injector, wifey, hello, we are struggling to find something to watch now. We're at a loss of what to watch.
I'm surprised because I feel like you guys are so busy that you don't have like shows stored up.
Yeah, we kind of, somehow we caught up with everything and with the things we really wanted to watch. And then we started a few things and just didn't feel enough of a thing that we have to watch it. Like The Last of Us, we kind of started the thing, but we're like, I don't know. Are you watching that?
Season 2?
Yeah, we started season 2 and we're like,
yeah.
What about you?
Us too. And also, well, my husband still wants to watch it, but he doesn't want to watch it with me anymore because I'm so mad about what they did on that show that I'm angry with how they.
How far along are you? We only watched an episode or two.
This third episode, I think.
What do you mean what they did?
Something big happens. A character dies, and
Oh, we didn't even see a dead character yet.
All right, well, so I won't spoil it for you.
But we just were annoyed at how bratty the girl was, the lead girl.
Yes.
So we got turned off.
Well, I was looking that up because it's based on a video game, and I guess video games are just so much different than how I grew up. It's like this whole story. But people are saying that's not how she is in the video game. And I think her
she's not bratty?
Too bratty too.
I don't know. It was just, we were like, okay, I don't know.
Yeah, I agree with you though.
So that kind of, plus I hate Scary. So between hating Scary and bratty,
yeah.
How do you watch it, right? Don't you hate Scary?
I do hate Scary, and I didn't expect to like the first season. You know why I like the first season though is Pedro Pascal. I just think he's just
he's great,
phenomenal.
Yeah,
that's why I watched the show.
Yeah, me too. And then the other show we were watching, Beef. We started watching. It came out a couple of years ago, I think, about this like a road rage thing. It starts kind of with a road rage thing
with Ali Wong. Yes. Yeah. That was always on our list, but then we always thought, is it too tense? Like I don't know. It's
comedic, but same kind of, and we liked it, but it didn't hold us, you know? So I don't know. What are you watching?
Having the same problem, like Apple TV, we started that John Hamm show. I think it's called like Your Friends and Neighbors.
Oh, we started that too. Actually, I was like, but Bernice kind of liked it because we love John Hamm.
He wasn't enough for, I'm just find that show boring, to be honest, but it's just not my thing. So we kind of stopped, and then we started The Studio with Seth Rogen because it's like about the movie business.
How was that?
It's not really holding my interest either, but there's like episode 6 or something. I'm going to finish it just to finish it. But episode 6 was about doctors. So I was wondering if you were watching that. It's like he's dating a doctor, and then they go to this like gala fundraiser thing, and like it's about like art versus like actual being a doctor and life saving. Like it's kind of, I thought you might like that episode. You might have things to say about that episode.
Actually, maybe we will watch that. Although I don't know, but I don't know if I could convince Bernice as much as I would love to watch it. But we started watching this comedy show. I forget the name of the comedian because it was a comedian who said, my father was a doctor, and then he decided during his spare time to get a law degree. And basically, why did he get a law degree? Because he really didn't want to be a father. You know, it was kind of funny, you know. And so we started watching it, but it was just, but that little bit was hysterical. We're like, in his spare time, he decided he needed to get a law degree. You know, it was a funny little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm also watching the NBA playoffs, which will end soon. So I'm going to be searching for something to tell our audience that I'm enjoying. Next time.
Well, audience members out there, give us some shows to watch. Give us. We would love shows to watch, some recs. We'd love to hear from you. You could find us on Instagram, Gross Anatomy Podcast on Instagram, or you could even email us or whatever you want to do. How else could they get a hold of us?
Yeah, email us. Go to our website, grossanatomypodcast.com. Find all the information, all the links.
And we'd love to hear from you. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thanks.
Bye. Thanks, everybody. We hope you enjoyed listening to this episode of Gross Anatomy Podcast. We love your feedback. Check us out. Go to our social media, Gross Anatomy Podcast on Instagram. Check out our TikTok and give us feedback.